rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He stuck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
I always love when you have like an industry and then people, Rush Limbaugh calls it drive-by critics. Like they don't listen to his show, but they like take a sound bite on his show and they like frame the show. You don't listen to the show. I don't either, by the way. That's why, I don't listen to the show. But I'll see critics who never listen to it take a line in it and judge the show. Listen to the show. We don't watch boxing in this country. 99% of sports fans don't know it, don't know the history, don't follow it. They swoop in to watch it for a night, and they're freaking out. What a ripoff! Mayweather is exactly what Mayweather does. That's why I love boxing. For 12 years, I've never talked about him before this week. He's boring. He's Larry Holmes as a heavyweight. Counterpuncher, jab. That's why nobody considers Larry Holmes an all-time great, even though for 5 years he was heavyweight champ. They consider Frazier, Ali, Lennox Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield. Nobody considers Larry Holmes an all-time great. And that's why with Mayweather, nobody considers him a top 5 or 10 fighter ever. But what he does, he did Saturday night. That's why we predicted a boring fight. He relies on single punches, counter punches to score effectively. He wins mostly by putting everybody to sleep. If Mayweather was a baseball player, you know who he'd be? He'd be Ichiro. Unbelievable defense. Hit .325, first ballot Hall of Famer, mostly singles. Hall of Famer, but to me overrated. Ichiro and Mayweather wait for guaranteed success. They're risk averse. They punch only to score. They put up great numbers, but you never feel like they really dominate. Both could hit for more power. Mayweather could be a brawler. Ichiro would get 230 hits a year, 6 home runs. Get in batting practice, he'd knock 6 straight out. But his average would drop. But Mayweather would get hit. So the truth is, with Ichiro and Mayweather, core discipline, which is boring, by the way, core discipline, you can argue is their greatest ally. I scored the fight. Mayweather landed single punches all night effectively. Pacquiao threw 475 punches and landed about 12. But Pacquiao was the aggressor. So what? That doesn't mean you win fights. Sometimes it did with Mike Tyson. Sometimes Mike Tyson was the aggressor against Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield. He tried to bite Evander's ear off. He was the aggressor. He didn't win those fights. Pacquiao landed in double figures in punches 3 of the 12 rounds. So I watched America swoop in and get mad at the fight. This is why we said we thought it could be a really boring fight. Mayweather is Ichiro. Risk-averse. Only steal a base when I know I'll be safe. Mayweather only gets close when I know I can score. Punch, move. Punch, move. Very few combinations. And as Mayweather's gotten older, he's gotten more risk-averse because he's got all this money now and he doesn't want to end up, babbling when he's 55, 60 years old. So the money in the bank, he's less likely to go toe-to-toe. You fight to win fights. Fans want interesting. Mayweather wants wins, and this is how he's been winning forever. Mayweather is the San Antonio Spurs. He's Ichiro. He's curing a rash. Really effective. Not that much fun to watch. That's the fight I saw. 3rd round, I thought Pacquiao won it. About the 9th, 10th round, Pacquiao had another really good combination. But if you watch boxing and you watch how they score, and that's why veteran judges are needed for fights with Mayweather, he can fool you if you don't understand how the game works. Punch, score, leave. Punch, score, leave. I grew up with Hagler and Hearns and Ali and Tyson. I don't like it. And I don't like Mayweather on, in, out of the ring. That's why I never talk about him, and he's 48-0. But that's what he does. And he outscored him. And the people that thought Pacquiao dominated don't follow the sport or don't understand the sport. You fight to win the fight. It's not about activity. It's about landing punches. Pacquiao didn't land any punches. Heard brought to you by TrueCar. Save time, money, never overpaid. Download the TrueCar app today. The other thing, everybody on Monday comes out, and they give draft grades. And it's really impossible for about 2 years. Because the draft, to a large degree, is a little bit like catalog shopping. Now, I don't like catalog shopping, especially shoes. I don't understand how people can order shoes online. I have wide feet. But yet, there's an entire company, Zappos, and a young man who's changed Las Vegas, all sorts of real estate in old Las Vegas, who creates this company called Zappos, and they sell shoes online. I don't know how you do it. I don't catalog shop. I don't like it. Every time I've catalog shopped before, too tight, too snug, too loose, doesn't fit, I got to try stuff on. And that's sort of what you can't, to me, grade today based on the fact that teams won't even know for about 18 months how this stuff fits. They really won't. Now, I can tell you, even though I don't know collectively what I like with all these draft grades, I can tell you individually what I like. Here's what I individually thought was a home run. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. Like Andrew Luck, he'll take a B-minus receiver and make him an A receiver. So if you draft receivers for Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, it's funny when they leave, they disappear. The Green Bay Packers, with the 94th pick, got Ty Montgomery. Ty Montgomery, with Aaron Rodgers, is going to be a star. Ty Montgomery's numbers in college were okay, but he had a conservative head coach, David Shaw, and average quarterbacks last couple of years. Ty Montgomery, 94th pick in the draft, with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy's play calling, home run pick. Two other picks I like, the San Diego Chargers. I'm not going to say collectively that I like anybody's draft because these coaches don't know for years. But their first two picks, Melvin Gordon, the running back, and Denzel Perryman, the linebacker, will start day one or be unbelievably productive. So to me, they got two guys who will make an impact, one on each side of the ball, very early. That's what I like. I like what Seattle did, getting Tyler Lockett, the wide receiver, and Terry Poole, the offensive tackle. I don't like their first pick, but I never liked Pete Carroll's first pick. Those guys will play a lot first year on a great roster. I love the New York Jets' first three picks in the draft. Leonard Williams will play. Devin Smith's an absolute burner from Ohio State who can get deep. And Lorenzo Malden, who you never saw play in college, who's an unbelievable story, 16 foster homes, is completely built for Todd Bowles' system. He's one of these hybrid linebackers like Jamie Collins for the Patriots. And if you look at the defense Todd Bowles runs, the Jets' first three draft picks will all have an impact and play early. I don't know about the rest of their picks. I like Bryce Petty, but he may never see the field. So that's what I love. Collectively, it's catalog shopping. You don't really know till you get it in-house. I'll have Bill Parcells on in 15 minutes. I'll ask him. I mean, you don't really know. I've had Bill Polian tell me they got an offensive guard years ago, and they're like, wow, he's terrible. We did all the combine work, and he can't play a lick. You don't know till you try it on. I like the fact the Ravens got, with 125th pick, Buck Allen from USC. Buck Allen's another great story. He doesn't make anybody miss. But he is a horse. He's classic Baltimore. No flash, no sizzle, looks like an NFL player. Runs downhill, works his arse off. That individually, I love as a pick.
Colin Cowherd. Looking good. Well, looking okay.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Yeah. Breaking news. Somebody had a baby in England named Charlotte. That's pathetic. That was a national story Saturday. Somebody had a baby you'll never meet. Oh, John had a baby?
No, they just named the baby just now.
Oh,
just learned the name.
The royal family just named the baby. God, who cares about
That's why we got the breaking news sound.
Is that the most embarrassing thing ever, that we care about a baby we'll never meet from a couple we'll never see? Colin says, over-emotional Twitter guy, it's a human life. Yes, and if you have a baby, you should care. And if you were my sister and had a baby, I'd care. This person in England you'll never meet had a baby, who you'll never meet in a country you'll never go to. I mean, seriously, people. Colin, you care about sports. Yeah, it's about earning something and dedication, and it ties communities together, and it builds father and son relationships. Yes, sports, a business. It's not somebody in England with bad teeth having a baby. The whole country's goofy. And my mom was British and made fun of the royal family. Baby made a stinky! Breaking news! Charlotte, Elizabeth, Diana, a baby taking a nap. Stop the parliament! God. Seriously, it's not your baby. You're not going to meet that thing. It's not your neighbor, your sister. So, of the many things that happened this weekend, I want to tell you quickly an amazing story about nature. This is only going to take like 90 seconds, but it's very important to be in awe of nature. So I was gone for like 4 or 5 days. I get back to the house from Vegas, right? And my wife was gone. She was doing something in Florida, long story. So anyway, I get back to the house, and I can hear a smoke detector going off. You ever had that thing? Like it goes off like every minute, smoke, yeah, like that. And so I have a house, and I was trying to figure out where it was, and it took me like 15 minutes. I went upstairs to my son's room. Now I was way in the distance. I went to my daughter's room. I couldn't hear it. All of a sudden, I finally get the smoke detector downstairs. And so downstairs, I find this little smoke detector thing, and I gotta replace the battery, okay? So I get down there, and downstairs in our house, we have this door that's a glass door that leads out to the yard. It leads out to a trampoline, whatever. So as I'm getting a ladder, and I'm going up on the smoke detector, and the thing's driving me crazy, and I got that little square battery thing, and I hear that thing go off, I look over to my right, and I'm not sure why I did it, and through the glass door, this is amazing nature story. Please pay attention. There were these 2 birds. They weren't that big. These 2 birds, they weren't those kind of birds. They were small birds. Yeah, like that, like those kind of birds. And they were on the handle of the door. Now, the way the door is at and where the door is at and the way it's built, you would never have birds on the door handle, ever. It's in like a little bit of a canyon. It's not where birds would be. So you know what was happening here. The birds were hearing the smoke detector for a few days, and they thought it was a bird in danger. So all these birds hearing a smoke detector through the walls of my house were all perched all over this door, looking in, trying to save another bird. And so I go over to the door and open it up, and there's bird crap everywhere. They've been there for like 4 days, and there's just piles of it. And I'm like, that's grotesque. Yeah, that was the big bird sound. So I thought that was an amazing story about nature, that these birds flying through the air hear the smoke detector go off in the corner of my house, and they fly down to the bottom of my house to hang out around this door to see if they can save another bird. Is that an amazing story about nature? I thought it was. Better than that damn fight. That was terrible. I'm kind of like a bird whisperer. It's amazeballs, isn't it?
Why don't you stop talking for a while?
Okay, I will. So, here's the other thing. I get a lot of these people that say Pacquiao was the aggressor. That doesn't matter in fights. It sometimes does, it sometimes doesn't. Here's the other thing. Before the fight, one of the things I talked about is I said, in sports, it's one of the reasons I don't love the Yankees this year, although they had a good weekend. When I pick an NBA team or a baseball team or a football team to win a championship, or if I pick a tennis guy or a golf guy to win, he's generally either in his prime or closer to it. So Pacquiao and Mayweather is closer to his prime. Now, that confuses a lot of people. They're like, what? Pacquiao is younger than Mayweather. Well, so what? He's also fought in 15 more fights, and he has been in brawls where he's taken a beating. Nobody ever touches Mayweather. And I was amazed how many people, what do you mean? Pacquiao is younger. He's closer to his prime. Go jog in a half marathon. There's 50 and 60-year-olds in this country in a lot better shape than Bubba at 24. Your peak physical years aren't based on just age. It's have you taken a beating? Have you treated your body right? I was in California the other day with a realtor. She was probably 55. She looked 28. That's what sun and eating avocados all day does. You can go see a Darlene down in Tuscaloosa, and she's 27 years old, and she's honey boo-boo. Then your age is not the only determining factor on your peak years. So Pacquiao, who hasn't knocked anybody out in 5.5, 6 years, is way past his prime. Mayweather's past his prime, but because he's almost never been hurt. He's rarely been hurt in his career. Is a much younger, fresher fighter. Oh, boy. Zach in New York's going to get after me because I'm not into the royal baby. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm in Florida, but I don't care about the royal baby either. But you're a business guy. There's a tremendous amount of business that's going to happen over the next 2-3 years from the naming of Charlotte. It's going to be huge. Everything involving Charlotte just increased in value.
So should I buy a condo in Charlotte and pick the Bobcats to win the NBA title? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think the crowd.
I don't know. Zach, I know I'm being.
No, I just think there's a tremendous business. There's big business. That family is business for everybody involved. There will be a lot of things. There are people waiting on a Barbie doll that they're going to name Charlotte. On a bear, they're going to name Charlotte. They were waiting on this today. That name. That is a big deal. That's all I'm saying.
Are you a business guy?
I'm sorry?
Are you a business guy?
I am a business guy.
I don't know, Zach. Zach, what kind of business are you in? Are you in the Charlotte business, Zach?
I'm not in the Charlotte business. I'm in the cold brew coffee business.
Okay.
All right? There's
all right.
Something to be said for
All
it.
right, Zach is busting my chops on this. Thank you, Zach. He's busting my chops. He says there's big business in this royal baby name. Apparently, Charlotte's Web is flying off the shelves at Borders. I mean, come on.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Bill Parcells joining me, the Herd on ESPN Radio. Former NFL exec, coach for many teams. All right, you're known, Bill, as a guy who's a great evaluator of talent. How long does it take as a coach or a GM to realize that you had a really good draft or maybe you underachieved?
I think you probably get an idea about it pretty early, but nothing conclusive until the second year. You know, I think you have to really start seeing something. And, you know, I learned a little bit from Coach Landry, who kind of gave me some instructions about how long you stay with players when you first get them. And his information was that the first year you got to give the player a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because of the acclimation process. But the second year you need to see something. And if you don't see it, third year out, get some more young players.
Bill Parcells joining us, Hall of Famer. Cowboys go out and get a very good player, Randy Gregory, late because of off-field issues. How did you view those?
You know, you're asking me a difficult question. I grew up in an organization, the New York Giants, was pretty conservative in that regard. Our general manager, George Young, used to have an expression, and he used to say, let someone else do it. And I think in some cases that's turned out to be pretty good advice. In other cases, maybe not so good. But I will tell you one true story here, Colin. 1998, my first year at the Jets, we have the first pick. Peyton Manning doesn't come out in the draft. Orlando Pace is sitting there. The player we liked was a kid named Darrell Russell. We brought him in for physical. It didn't go too well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we decided to trade down. We traded down 2 times. We wound up taking a player named James Farrier, who played very well in the league for a long time. Darrell Russell, on the other hand, was the second pick of the draft. He had some issues coming out, went to the Raiders, didn't go too well. A couple years later, he was dead. So not all these situations work out well. And I think it's a risk-reward thing, and it's a difficult choice. Myself, when you're picking that high in the draft, I don't think you can gamble. I just don't think it's worth it.
Yep.
No matter how good the player might be, you're investing so much money and you're compromising your franchise if it doesn't work out.
Bill, the Jets didn't need a defensive lineman, but Leonard Williams was there with a number 6 pick, and he's pretty good. What was your philosophy on, hey, there's an amazing guy available. We may not need a receiver, but he's the best guy on our board. What's your theory on that?
Well, we had that exact situation at the Giants. We had Lawrence Taylor and Brad Van Pelt. Taylor had been in the league 2 years, was taking the league by storm. Van Pelt had been to the Pro Bowl 5 times, and a guy named Carl Banks was available on the 3rd pick in the draft. We wound up picking him. People said, why'd you do that? You didn't need him. He wound up being a really, really good player for the Giants for 10 years or 11 years, however many it was. And so I think you just take what you know to be the best players, and that's what the Jets did. And I'm sure Todd Bowles was thinking that way when that guy fell down to him.
You know, I said this the other day. I have certain theories on life and in sportscasting. And in the draft, I've never liked trading prospects for prospects. The 2 players that were an exception to me were Elway and Andrew Luck, which I said before, those guys were taken. I'd give up multiple. I don't like prospect for prospect trading. Obviously, some people are willing to do it. San Diego did, and they thought they got a great running back in Melvin Gordon. Do you have a belief system on the ability or the reasoning behind giving up unknowns to get an unknown?
Well, I think if your conviction and your vision for the unknown you're trying to acquire is so strong that you really believe that this is in the best interest of the club, I think you make the decision with that in mind. But generally speaking, I kind of agree with you. I think unknown for unknown is not usually real good business.
You know, Bill, you've had a sense of business for years. Last 61 quarterbacks taken before this draft, we've only had a couple of home runs. I think a lot of that is rushing players into the game before they're ready. Bryce Petty for the Jets, for instance, he could sit back for a year or 2 here and not play. That's a big advantage. Do you think – let's go back to Phil Simms in your pick, who ended up having a great career and winning Super Bowls. When you draft Phil Simms, what was your mindset when you drafted him?
Well, actually, I wasn't the head coach at the time he got drafted, but I agree with you 100%. You're preaching to the choir when you talk about rushing these players in. But that's what happens. They get drafted number 1 or number 2, like these 2 young fellows that just recently happened to, and the fans want to see them, the owner wants to see them, everybody kind of wants to see them, and that may not be in the player's best interest, really. Now, you know, some guys go into situations where they have a good cast, and I think Jameis Winston, you know, he's going to have some pieces down there offensively to, you know, kind of assist him. They've got a good receiving core. They got a runner. It's, you know, it looks pretty good. The question with him, to me, is he's not real elusive. He's going to get hit in the pocket.
Yes.
Can he take a beating like Roethlisberger can take it?
Yep.
And if he can, he's going to be a great player because he can throw the ball. The other fella, his cast is not as good going to Tennessee. So how much of the onus is going to be on him like it was on Andrew Luck? Now, Andrew Luck is a tremendous player, but he still can't do enough with the players that they have and the defense that they've had to get his team over the hump. Until they get enough around him, till their defense gets better, they're going to get to a certain point and no further. So that's what you kind of worry about. And when these guys start out, like these 2 young men are going to do now, you know, there's a confidence factor, and it's born of demonstrated ability. And if the things that you're demonstrating aren't working out, sometimes the player's confidence can get shaken a little bit.
David Carr got drafted, got hit so many.
Perfect example.
Yep, he just lost his confidence. He's a terrific talent. Now his brother's in the league. Bill Parcells, down south, gonna come up north now to the cooler temperatures.
Well, we got to kind of follow the horses a little too. So the horses head north, kind of we head north.
Good talking to you, Coach.
Thank you, Colin. Good luck.
Putting style in black T-shirts. It's Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Wallace, Mayweather is just, he's not aggressive. He never takes risks inside the ring. And I think it's kind of funny, Wallace, watching America be disappointed when in reality it's just how Mayweather fights, right?
Absolutely. I watched the fight like everybody else, and I was disappointed, but not surprised because, yes, this is how he has fought for many, many years now. And if you want to put the responsibility on anybody, you got to put it on Manny because he knows as well as we do. And they've been watching tape of this guy for, 5 years now, waiting for this fight. They knew exactly what he was going to do. It was Freddie Roach's responsibility and Manny's responsibility to come up with a game plan to get him out of his comfort zone, make him fight at a pace he didn't want to fight at, hit him with shots he hasn't been hit with before, and they weren't able to execute any of that. So if you want to blame somebody for the fight being boring, I would say blame Manny, not Floyd. He did exactly what he's done for the past 10 years.
Well, Muhammad Ali was the great manipulator. Frazier was a brawler. Tyson was a brawler. Larry Holmes was a jab artist. We have historically had guys who fight differently. When you look at Mayweather, Wally, I don't consider him a top 5 fighter of all time. I almost consider him like Ichiro in baseball. He's a defensive-minded manipulator, risk-averse. Where do you put him all time?
Oh, I wouldn't put him in the top 5 either. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I wrote a column that pretty much dealt with this. And before the fight, people were just outraged with me where I said, name the great Floyd Mayweather fight. Tell me the battle you're going to remember him for. Before this one, there wasn't any, and you won't remember him for this one either. So I would say absolutely right. A defensive-minded guy, a guy who tries to take as much of the danger out of boxing as he can, which, is in his interest, fine. And he's been able to make a ton of money doing it. But, in terms of being an entertaining fighter, not really. I admire him. I think he's tremendously talented. I think he's a brilliant tactician. But, he's about as exciting as watching paint dry. So, no, I could not put him even in the top 10 all time.
6 years ago, when Pacquiao was younger, it appeared to be stronger and a more lethal puncher. Could it have been a different fight 6 years ago?
Maybe. But it all comes down to tactics, Colin. It depends. Would they have come up with a better fight plan 6 years ago? You think that they would have had more time to think of one this time? That was the thing that shocked me the most. Does Manny have the ability to do it? Maybe he did 6 years ago. I'm not sure he does now. He's certainly an age fighter. But you would think you would have had the smarts to figure out a way. If you recall, there were several moments in the fight where he had Floyd on the ropes and he was banging away at the body and then just stopped and stepped back and asked him to come off the ropes because he wasn't getting through and couldn't figure out how. A fighter of that experience, a guy who's been around that long, that's the last thing you want to do is give up an advantage like that. And he did it at least 3 times by my count.
You're one of the few columnists in the country. You may be one of only 1 or 2 that can cover anything, but I see you as really a guy who really has an encyclopedic understanding and knowledge of boxing. So you're old school, but have remained relevant now. When you watch that fight Saturday, is your heart somewhat broken? Because you and I grew up in a different time. I want boxing to be so important, and I watched that fight with some sadness. Did you?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, but I will tell you this. I feared going into the fight that this could be a bad night for boxing because when you have a lot of eyes on a sport, you certainly don't want to come up with a bad event. I went through the scenarios in my head. What could happen here? Well, it could be a great fight, and everybody will say, wow, I can't wait for the next one. Or it could be, a bad decision. It could be somebody fouls out. It could be some kind of unsatisfying ending like, say, Leonard Duran or Tyson Holyfield 2. And that would be a bad night for boxing. Or it could just be a stinker of a fight, and people would say, they suckered me again. And I think that's what we got. And I don't think it helps in terms of future pay-per-view fights. I don't think it helps in terms of coverage. I think a lot of sports editors who spent a lot of money to send their people for this fight will say, hey, man, I'm not going to do it again. You saw what happened last time. So sadness, no, but disappointment, definitely.
Well, I don't think we'll see a rematch here. I don't.
I hope not. I didn't see any reason to think it would be different.
Yeah, exactly. Wallace, absolutely love having you on the show. Thanks, man.
Like being on it, man. I'll see you soon.
Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. Last season, the Pirates Pirates reached the postseason for the second consecutive season, only to be sent home early after losing the wild card. Will they return for the third straight year? This weekend they face the Cubs, who have plans to make their first postseason berth since 2008. The Cubs and Pirates. The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app.
That one is drilled to left field. Is it high enough? It is gone. See ya. A pinch hit. Home run for Alex Rodriguez. Number 660, tying him with Willie Mays for fourth place on the all-time home run list. And he does it in dramatic fashion, giving the Yankees a 3-2 lead.
Go Yard, brought to you by Scott's Lawn Care Company and Major League Baseball. I hope A-Rod hits 60 jacks. They test him every day, and they can't find anything. I think it's funny. People are all worked up. Oh, my God, this guy is such a... Then test him. Nobody's getting tested in baseball like A-Rod. Seriously. He hands his keys to the valet. Guy hands him a pea cup. That guy gets tested probably during batting practice, gives the valet his car after it. I mean, seriously, he is... I'm surprised he didn't go into the dugout after that home run and they didn't hand him a bottle. He's peeing 9 times a day from MLB. They're all over that guy. Well, I think it's funny. It's great drama. Nobody knows what to do. Yankees don't want to pay him for the bonuses. And, hey, Yankees, when you brought Jason Giambi in, oh, really, you didn't have any suspicions? Clean? Sit-ups, Cliff Bars? That's how he got so big? Yeah, you bet. Bunch of hypocrites. Bunch of hypocrites. It's funny, you didn't want any hair samples of Jason Giambi. Everybody knew the game. Everybody knew the game at the end. You were bringing in guys. You knew the story. Now nobody wants to pay A-Rod. You knew the story. You brought him back. Shame on you if you kept buying his stuff. Yankees are like calling Major League Baseball. Is there retinal scanning? Can we just look at him and find out? Because we've tested him now 47 times during the homestand. We got nothing with him. We're just wondering because they're just looking for alibis. They're giving him cups. We'll create cup night. They don't know what to do with him. He just keeps jacking it. Let me say this. Last week I was arguing everybody says running backs are a dime a dozen, and I said increasingly wide receivers are a dime a dozen because no 13, 14-year-old kid who's really fast wants to play running back. He wants to be a quarterback or a wide receiver. So you have all these great athletes now at wide receiver, and because the NFL's a bubble screen league, you don't have to be 6'4", 220 like Calvin Johnson. You don't even have to run a 4.4, a 4.5. You can be a 4.65 guy, be a bubble screen guy. Julian Edelman, he's not a burner. Danny Amendola is not a burner. They're quick. They have good hands. They run good routes. So nobody wants to take the beating of a running back if they have choices. So wide receivers are becoming more a dime a dozen. You know how many wide receivers got picked in this draft? 35. Running backs, 19. Quarterbacks, 7. Running back was the most picked position. 35 wide receivers. You can find them anywhere. South, Midwest, Mountain West Conference, ACC, SEC, doesn't matter. Wide receiver. I noticed this a couple years ago in California with recruiting. The state of California, the entire state for recruiting would give you 2 great running backs a year. And I'm like, it's over. They give you 15 good receivers. Kids don't want to be running backs anymore. All right, Derek, you think something was shady happening in Vegas. Go ahead, Derek.
Come on, Colin. I agree with you all the time. I'm a big fan. But you're doing an injustice to your listeners. You know, you've been doing this a long time. It started with the selfie coming down, walking to the ring. That was a mockery. They accidentally hit each other once or twice in the face. If you look at the little one flurry, I think it was the 3rd round. I'm not sure. It was my 3rd Belvini in at the time. But it was like he was body blow. It was like 2 little kids fighting, then he moved away. This was not Floyd Mayweather being Greg Maddox. Stop. You've been doing it a long time. Call it what it is. It was a bigger heist than the Lufthansa heist, and you know that. And everybody and anybody that knows anything about boxing knows it. Teddy Atlas touched on it earlier.
Patrick Ewing, was the envelope frozen too? That looked like Mayweather's fights. That's how he fights. People swooping him to be outraged are ridiculous. It's like moving to Kenya and complaining it's hot. It's moving to Minneapolis and barking about the winters. If you watch that fight and are outraged by Mayweather, that's who he is. It's why I don't talk about him and I love boxing. I never liked his fights. I don't like him out of the ring. I don't like him in the ring. I've never talked about Larry Holmes. I talk about boxing often. Larry Holmes bored me to tears. The fight wasn't fixed. It was boring. It was boring. If you wanted to really fix a fight, think about this. If you wanted to fix a fight, you wouldn't make it boring. You'd make it controversial. Okay. Pacquiao lands in the last round a shot and knocks down Mayweather, and it screws with all the cards, and it's a draw. That's what you do. You'd make it interesting, not boring. If you wanted to throw a fight, you'd make it fascinating. I can't explain it. It's unbelievable. They've got to fight again. You wouldn't make it unwatchable and think nobody wants to watch it again. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to throw a fight, that's not the way you're going to throw it. Don't hit each other, tick people off, and make them resent boxing. You're going to have all sorts of stuff. Okay, Pacquiao dive in the 4th, Mayweather dive in the 8th. Pacquiao dive now in the 9th, Mayweather in the 10th, and people are like, oh my God, I got to see this fight again. I got to get another one. Here's $150 pay-per-view. That's how you throw a fight, not, hey, you guys, make it visual Sominex. Put people to sleep for an hour. That's not how you throw a fight.
Boring.
Matt, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Listen, you're totally wrong. This guy, Floyd Mayweather Jr., is the greatest boxer of all time. He just made Manny Pacquiao look like a bum in the ring. Do you know how hard that is? Think about that. This guy is that good. You can't knock him out. He don't knock nobody out. You just said Greg Maddux throws junk up there and Nolan Ryan throws fireballs. But Greg Maddux is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. You can't knock him for not having power.
Well, I would say this. I would agree, Matt, 5-6 years ago, if he made Pacquiao look like that. I think I said on Friday, I was concerned Pacquiao shot. Marquez knocked him out. I mean, knocked him out. Timothy Bradley beat him. I don't think Pacquiao's the same fighter. He hasn't knocked anybody out in 6 years. I said Friday, my concern was Pacquiao's a shot fighter. I kind of think he is. I think it's done. Even though he's younger than Mayweather, he's just taken too much of a beating. It's over. He's got no knockout power, and he's not fast. He really isn't. He had 2 good combinations. And you could tell he didn't want to go near Floyd. He didn't want to mix it up. A couple of times he got in there because Floyd's bigger and stronger now.
Technology gone bad. Gone bad. This is the Thundering Herd podcast.
Today is May 4th, and so a lot of these Star Wars nerds, every May 4th, walk around town saying, May the 4th be with you. Nerds! Herb Street's probably in Nashville pulling that joke out about every 15 seconds. So, good luck with that. I watch Star Wars, but, I don't get the endless fascination, but I watched it. It was fine. Yeah. I mean, I watched it. It was fine. I don't need 40 years later to have all the funny lines categorized, but whatever. A couple weeks ago, I was making fun of ESPN2, ran a show of video gamers, and I was like, that was distasteful. That was awful. But, people like video games. But I was like, I'm not really into that whole thing. I mean, I've played video games and stuff, but I was making a joke. I said, if I was ever forced to cover that as a sport, I'd quit. And they all got all worked up. And they're called esports. That's what they call them now. Like, esports is like people who play video games and you televise it and stuff. And I'm not really into watching that. But I guess that's really popular, like playing video games and people televising playing video games. And it's called esports. The E stands for empty of anything meaningful in their life. But nonetheless, esports is very, very popular.
Really, all that matters is who gets the third tribute. Do you get 3 total so you can curse your opponent and, of course, make it so his buildings don't even shoot at you?
That, I'm told, is the future of American sports television. And it's called esports. Oh, my bad. E stands for eclair, because I've seen the shape of some of you 42-year-old guys that sit in the couch playing video games all day. We had a vote if people wanted to listen to my amazing bird story. I thought it was one of the most compelling human dramas ever told on this radio network. And we had a vote for yay or nay. It was 2.5 hours ago. 70% in favor of retelling the amazing bird story. So before I end the show today, we're going back to what I consider a career highlight. Heard brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics. They take motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Pure Plus Synthetics today. The fight on Saturday in Las Vegas was as we predicted, but were hoping wouldn't transpire. It was boring. People can blame Floyd Mayweather, but Floyd Mayweather won the fight going away because he scores with single punches. He is uber quick. That's how he fights. It's how he's fought for years. And as Wallace Matthews, a former boxing writer, said, you can blame Pacquiao for the fight.
He knows as well as we do, and they've been watching tape of this guy for, 5 years now? They knew exactly what he was going to do. It was Freddie Roach's responsibility and Manny's responsibility to come up with a game plan to get him out of his comfort zone, make him fight at a pace he didn't want to fight at, hit him with shots he hasn't been hit with before, and they weren't able to execute any of that. So if you want to blame somebody for the fight being boring, I would say blame Manny, not Floyd. He did exactly, what he's done for the past 10 years.
By the way, in only 3 of the 12 rounds did Pacquiao land double-digit punches. He had a lot of activity, but was incredibly inefficient at landing punches. And what I find time and time again is that people swoop in. Rush Limbaugh calls them drive-by listeners, like the critics. They don't listen to his show. They take a sentence, take it out of context, and here's what he is. Well, the truth is, if you watch Mayweather fight, this is what he has replicated dozens of times. It's his style.
A defensive-minded guy, a guy who tries to take as much of the danger out of boxing as he can, which, is in his interest, fine. And he's been able to make a ton of money doing it. But, in terms of being an entertaining fighter, not really. I mean, I admire him. I think he's tremendously talented. I think he's a brilliant tactician. But, he's about as exciting as watching paint dry. So, no, I could not put him even in the top 10 all time.
And I don't really have a list of top 10 fighters. Muhammad Ali was great. Sugar Ray Leonard was amazing. There was a point I thought Roberto Duran. But I'm not going to deny that Mayweather's a talent. I mean, the guy is off the hook fast. And though he's older, he's closer to his prime than Manny Pacquiao, who has taken a beating in the last couple of years. Marquez knocked him flat out. Bradley beat him, and he's taken a ton of shots. And because Pacquiao stood in the center of the ring and exchanged blows, that head has taken a lot of shots. You can argue Mayweather has only been hurt a couple of times. Forget knocked out. He's only been hurt a couple of times. So there's not going to be a rematch. I don't think there should be. When Ali fought Frazier 3 times, there was a reason for it. Those personalities and those styles warranted rematches. In the first fight, Frazier controlled and pummeled Ali. In the second fight, Ali manipulated Frazier. Different tactics. In the third fight, Ali started quickly. Frazier was a notoriously slow starter. And then Frazier wobbled. Ali did some rope-a-dope. They called the fight in the 14th round. It didn't look like the first 2 fights. So that fight, because of the offensive talent of both, warranted rematches. Mayweather, if you can't beat him and that's your best shot, you're not going to be better in a year when you're a year older.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU.
The Thundering Herd Podcast. Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.